What is the most important lesson we learned from the pandemic? Humans are disappointing. Systematic defending of education is deadly. People who are not capable of thinking for themselves somehow started telling informed, productive, worthwhile members of society to do your own research or doing the exact opposite. You only have so long to live and none of it is even guaranteed even if you do absolutely everything right. Negligence of others can literally kill you and your loved ones. Find and surround yourself with good people. Disregard the rest. They are simply not worth your energy. When people show you who they are, believe them. I learned that people will always downplay their personal risky behavior versus someone else's behavior. It is very difficult to know how much exposure someone has had unless you ask very specific questions. You cannot rely on people's assessment of how careful they have been in general terms. Also, people assume being around strangers is riskier than friends and family. People will go to a 15-person indoor gathering with family no problem, but be very worried about standing in an elevator with two strangers for 90 seconds. I learned that I put my career ahead of my kids. Pre-pandemic, the kids were in school after school care until my husband picked them up. I was getting home around 8:39. Quarantine was the most time I had spent with them since they were toddlers. I cried when they went back to school and quit my job so I would be home more. The pandemic taught me that family is more important. It's really unfortunate that 4 years later, a two-income household is now the only way to afford both living expenses, groceries. That the biological layer of our planet can bounce back very quickly from us actively destroying it, if we allow it to do so. I thought the pandemic was an opportunity to see how much capitalism was killing us and our planet. And pets they loved. When relatives and friends died, people got perspective on what it meant to be alive. Working from home was for many a release from some chains. Smog cleared up remarkably well, etc. That capitalism marches on. People are all taught, but rarely give a crap when it comes down to doing the right thing. I worked in a children's hospital during the pandemic. 2 years people went out of their way to help the sick kids at our hospital, but it was all performative, all just for PR and to look good. When asked to put on one mask so the kid with cancer didn't get sick, these same people lost their minds. Some openly said that the kids dying were sick anyway, as if they were to just be discarded or we should even try. That if people need to make a more ethical decision and their personal beliefs end up aligning with being on the I am okay with more harm to human beings end of things, instead of trying to justify their choice. Instead, what will happen is they will mentally adjust their worldview about actual observable facts until their decision is not the more harm to humans outcome. It real was amazing to see the views about objective reality change to fit the moral viewpoint, not the other way around. On a serious note, kids need to go to school. Remote work may be effective. Remote learning, especially for elementary age children, is not. In addition to the learning and socialization loss, school also functions as daycare, freeing parents to work. In the next pandemic, I hope that society is slow to close schools. The teachers and school administrators may push back, but overall I think that society is healthier in the short and long term when kids attend school in person. That millions of people are dangerously stupid and or prone to bizarre conspiracy theories. 5G, implanted microchips, and a wave of death among the vaccinated that would have them dropping like flies. It's been several years since I heard that claim about the massive spike in mortality among the vaccinated that would have them dying across the world in droves. I notice that not many people are making that claim much these days. I wonder why. Poor people are seen as disposable by rich people. The US government cares more about its GDP and about the safety and lives of 90 of its citizens. That people can be cruel, ugly, monstrous and utterly selfish. It was extremely uncomfortable seeing empty shelves in stores across the city. I mean, any student of history knows all of these things. But every 100 years or so, a pandemic comes along, and we are all reminded of the above. 1. mRNA vaccine technology works, it's safe, and next time, we'll be able to deploy it faster and better. 2. Public health responses are run by governments. Governments are run by politicians. To elect politicians who surround themselves with experts and make proper use of their expertise, not politicians who cultivate conspiracy bullshit and fight any experts who stand up for reality. King time bomb of rage, hate, and jealousy that can be riled up by any idiot with a microphone as long as they spew hate against someone's hypothetical enemy, all blaming them for all their problems. That many will believe the unbelievable as long as it makes them feel superior. It's not over, but lessens. People are generally very ableist and individualistic. They're also happy to stick their heads in sand to avoid facing the mountains of data showing that COVID is wildly dangerous, and we should continue to mask and take precautions. The US government could give two shits about public health or the lives of disabled and otherwise high-risk people. We were forced to keep working to keep the machine running. People who didn't have the privilege to work from home were forced to keep businesses running. Especially healthcare, the piles of dead they had to keep in buildings proves how underfunded and understaffed they are. In short, government and businesses don't care about people, they care about keeping a status quo. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. Also, everyone is a lot dumber than I previously thought. It's mind-boggling how Hitler rose to power and convinced his countrymen to sign off on the atrocities committed against their neighbors and friends, only to see it play out in front of my very eyes. My faith in humanity changed. I used to think that if we were all faced with a common enemy, we would all put aside our differences and come together like in Independence Day. But now I realize if there ever were alien contact, we would be fucked as a species. Some bunch of people would be collaborating in a heartbeat for personal gain. I've been living paycheck to paycheck for years. This means being socially isolated at home. You go to work and then you go home. Occasionally you can afford to go out somewhere and haircuts become a low priority thing. The way I lived for a decade other people did for 2 weeks and started freaking out. That many physical officers and mid-level supervisors are unnecessary. Always work can be produced, tracked and evaluated electronically. There's no need for them to work in a central location to justify a person walking around the office and looking over their shoulders. Also unnecessary, pounds. That no matter how much data or evidence they're presented with, some people will outright reject science and even common sense. We really had random 60-year-old hillbillies thinking they knew better than actual scientists and doctors because of a meme they read on their Facebook. Our institutions are fundamentally broken and corrupted. You basically can't trust anything they say or do. They were wrong about everything and incredibly slow to adjust. The best I could say is they were incompetent, but it's more likely a lot of corruption and ass covering. The COVID lockdown has taught us 3 things. 1. Our economy collapses as soon as it stops selling useless stuff to over-indebted people. 2. It is perfectly possible to reduce pollution. Point 3. The lowest paid people in the country are essential to its functioning. There are significantly more people than you'd assume who will oppose good ideas on principle. What that principle is, and what it's based on, will vary, but it's really not important. For many of these people, it was enough that someone else supported these good ideas. How propaganda can spread much faster than any virus. How easily some people will defer to authority without question. How some people would prefer to endanger others than be minorly inconvenienced. And just how, again, anything and everything can be politicized. I didn't realize viruses were so airborne. Before COVID, I thought you primarily got the flu etc. from touching your face, nose. As after coming into contact with it, didn't know it can be basically lingering in the air and you become infected that way. Week. We realized that we were not eating, sleeping, and shitting the freaking job. I loved being home. But I was one of the lucky ones that got paid for just doing some safety modules on the computer. People with expertise on a subject and believed their own misguided opinions that they formed while they were scrolling social media and taking a shit, even if it ends up killing them or someone else. That a lot of people are really, really fucking stupid, will bite into the dumbest conspiracy theories, would rather take a livestock deworming pill that could destroy their liver than a medically and scientifically proven vaccine. that 45% of the population are immunologists and virologists and 39% are physicists who know everything about droplet entrapment and airflow up through Mars. Yet, somehow they ended up doing something else in their lives to make money. Edit or not, but the most important lesson we should have learned is that corporations consider us so expendable that they don't think it unreasonable to expect us to die for their profit margins. When scared, people tend to follow an example, oftentimes against their own best judgment. If you want to convince someone to do something, do not give them information and statistics. Show them an example of you having done it. That people are so selfish and stupid that they would rather let the sick and elderly die than wear a cloth mask on their face for short periods of time. My faith in humanity was already low. COVID put it through the floor. The amount of pollution and noise cars cause is actually stupid. Walkability and accessibility and public spaces are a need we've been denied. Remote work is also something we all deserve to have the option to do. If any disease comes around that has a high mortality rate, the world is completely turbo-fucked. If COVID had a 50-60 fatality rate, that would have pretty much been game over. Apocalypse now. Literally. There are two types of people: those who believe in doing what's best for everyone even if it means personal sacrifice, and those who see their own inconvenience as unacceptable no matter what. That despite all the patriotic rhetoric, a large proportion of Americans genuinely don't care about the health or welfare of their fellow countrymen, or have any sense of social responsibility. Just how tenuous our society really is. People literally got into fistfights over toilet paper. The things holding it together and keeping us rational are less strong than we assumed. The hospital and are run fairly efficiently when it isn't bogged down by people coming in for minor issues that could be addressed at urgent care or a doctor's office appointment.